So today I will talk about something about the random neural network and the feature learning for neural network using the random matrix theory. So this is joint work with Zhou and Denny, and they are all here, so you can ask the questions with them. So the model I'm considering is the neural network model, a fully connected neural network. So here we just have input x and apply a matrix W1 and apply the nonlinear activation function sigma entry-wisely. And here this 1 over square root D1 is just a scaling to make sure the output for the first layer is order 1. And D1 is just a number of neurons for the first layer. So here you see you have like D1 number of neurons for the first layer. And then you iteratively apply this for the second layer until the last layer. We use a linear weight. So the concatenation of all these weight matrices are the training parameters. And in the neural network model, we use the gradient descent to train the model with some training data set. So here we are considering the case that we have a larger sample size, like we have n sample size, x1, x2, up to xn are the different data set. And we want to apply this training sample size to the neural network. And at initialization, these weight matrices are just IID Gaussian. And we consider the output for each hidden layer. This XL is just output of else layer hidden layer. We have this normalization to make sure that the output is almost order 1. There are two kernel matrices in this neural network model, which are very important for the training. And one of is this kernel matrix, this conjugate kernel matrix, is just a gram matrix of this output at each layer. So else layer here. KL is just defines the else layer CK matrix. Another one is a neural tangent kernel, and it can be decomposed into some combination of this conjugate kernel. And in this talk, I will just focus on the conjugate kernel and considering some spectral properties for the random and trained CK matrix at each hidden layer. Okay, so that's the setup. So previously, there is some results for the limiting eigenvalue distribution for this KL matrix at each hidden layer. Zhou and I analyzed the spectral distribution for this eigenvalue for this KL matrices at random initialization with the proper scaling. So we consider the case that sample size and the dimensions for each hidden layer is proportionally growing to infinity. In this case, we can analyze the limiting eigenvalue distribution, which is defined by some Marchand-Pass law map. And here, this B sigma is a coefficient from the activation function, which is actually the first Hermite coefficient in this activation function. You can view from these pictures. So here, this is just eigenvalue distribution or the histogram for the initial data. And we can apply this blue convolution map based on the Marchand-Pass law distribution. We can get the distribution for the first layer CK matrix is x1 transpose x1. And then we can iteratively apply this Marchand-Pass law map to get the spectral for the second layer and so on. So this can be computed from the Zhou transform. I will define this limiting quantity later. But the question we are interested in this talk is not for this spectral distribution, since this spectral distribution only gives you a global description for all the eigenvalues. But we need to know something more. For instance, we want to know if there is any eigenvalue which is outside this limiting spectral distribution, outside the spot of this spectral distribution. And is there any hidden information corresponding to this outer eigenvector? So we want to analyze the specific eigenvalue and eigenvector. So that's the motivation. The reason why we're interested in this outer eigenvalue and this eigenvector is from the following questions. The first one is based on the data set. So real-world data sets really contain some low-dimension structures. We want to know if you have some low-dimension structure in the data set, how does it propagate through this random neural network? So like you have the data set, you always do the principal component analysis, and this principal component is related to this outer eigenvalue or some low-dimension signal. Okay. The second motivation is coming from the the deep learning. So we really want to know how we train the neural network. It turns out when we train the neural network, you will see some spike structure in the weight matrix. And then we want to know how does this spike structure in this conjugate kernel, in this trained conjugate kernel, not in the random case. And can we analyze it and understand how the neural network using the gradient descent train learns the representation from the data set. Okay, so that's two motivation. It turns out this is something can be analyzed from random matrix theory. The main observation is that if we observe this KL matrix, this gram matrix, is a sample covariance matrix. This XL, if you condition on the XL minus L-1 layer, then this XL matrix has independent rows, and it's a sample covariance matrix with a general population covariance. Then we can use this random matrix theory to analyze the location for the spikes or the outlier eigenvalues and eigenvectors. So this is the motivation. Here is the outline for this talk. So first of all, I will talk about the general random matrix theory for this nonlinear spike sample covariance, since this KL matrix essentially can be characterized by this nonlinear spike sample covariance matrix. Then in the second part, I will talk about the application in your network. First of all, we will consider the case that if you have the data set have some spike structure, and how does it propagate through this random neural network with multiple layers. In the second part, we will apply this spike sample covariance matrix to understand the trained CK matrix in the two-layer neural network. Okay, so that's the plan. Okay, so now let me first talk about the random matrix theory for this general sample covariance matrix. So here is the general setting. We consider matrix G with just independent row, this G1, G2, these vectors are just independent copy with mean 0 and general population covariance. We define this sigma is just the population covariance for these GIs. There are two matrices you can try to analyze. One is the gram matrix, one is the conjugate matrix. These two have the same non-zero eigenvalue, so you can analyze either of these. I use this K and K tilde to define that. And previously, Marchand-Pascal and by Zhou analyzed the limiting eigenvalue distribution for this K and K tilde, assuming some concentration for these GI vectors, and assuming that this covariance matrix has a limiting law. So let's say we define this limiting eigenvalue distribution for the sigma is nu. And then using the random matrix theory, we know that the limiting eigenvalue distribution for this K is governed by this deformed Marchand-Pascal law, where this is a multiplicative free convolution for two probability measures. One is the Marchand-Pascal law, one is just the limiting law for this covariance matrix. Okay, so that's something, I will define this quantity later based on the Zhou transform. Okay. So as I mentioned before, we need to understand this K and K tilde was the limiting eigenvalue distribution for this one. I define this as mu and mu tilde, since these two are just deferred from some measure as 0, so we can just quantify the relation very easily. It turns out we can use the Zhou transform to analyze the limiting eigenvalue distribution for mu and or mu tilde, and I define here this m and m tilde are the corresponding Zhou transform. And then these two Zhou transform are governed by these two fixed point equation. So this blue one is the fixed point equation for this mz, and this red box is for the m tilde. Okay, for any z, you can use that fixed point equation, compute the Zhou transform, and using the Zhou transform, you can recover the limiting eigenvalue distribution. The second equation is more useful, since here you can view this function is the inverse function of the m tilde. So given the m tilde, then you can locate the z. So it's the inverse function for m tilde. We will use that to quantify the outlier eigenvalues. Okay. As a remark, if the population covariance matrix is just identity, this is well understood, and we know the formula for the PDF for this Marchand-Pass law. But in general, if you consider sigma is a general matrix with certain limiting spectral distribution, then we have to use this fixed point equation to compute the Suger transform. As I mentioned, we can view this second equation for the fixed point equation of m tilde as an inverse function. So given the set T, then we can define this Z transform is a transform for the inverse transform from m tilde. So it's well defined on this subset. And it turns out this m tilde is a bijection under this subset. So it turns for these two subsets. I will explain that from the figure later. But essentially, this shows that if you know there is, if x is on the real line and is outside the spot of this mu tilde, then this derivative for this transform should be positive. And this z is the inverse function of m tilde. So that this will help us to locate the position for the outer eigenvalue. Since if you have an outer eigenvalue which is not inside the spot of this mu tilde, then you can use this z transform to define this location. And, okay. We can view this from these two figures from this textbook by Bai and Silverstein. So here, this is just the spectral distribution for this free convolution, this mu. There are three components, three boxes. And these are the spot here. And this is a function for this z transform function. And I just, in this y-axis, I just quantify the spot of this distribution. So you see here you have three components. This black dashed line represents the spot of this mu. And outside this spot, this z transform is just an increasing function. So the derivative for this z transform is positive in this case. So if you have some outer eigenvalue here outside the spot, then the derivative for z transform should be positive. So otherwise, if the derivative is negative, then you will not see any outer eigenvalue here. Okay. So this is the transform we will use to locate the spike eigenvalue. Okay. So here are the assumptions for this general sample covariance matrix. Same as the Bai-Zhou's results I presented before, we assume the GIs are independent with mean zero, with the common covariance matrix sigma, with certain kind of concentration result for these GIs. The only difference is that for the sigma, we assume there are several outliers. So here we assume you have lambda I from 1 to r. This outlier eigenvalue will converge to some lambda i's, which is outside the spot of this limiting distribution. And the other eigenvalues for this sigma will just converge to this spectral. Okay. So given this case, then we can analyze how this outer eigenvalue for sigma produce any spike in this sample covariance matrix. Okay. So as I mentioned, we use this Z transform, and also we need to use another phi transform to analyze the eigenvector alignment, but I will not introduce the details here. There are two cases. One is the null model case. If R is 0, which means in the population covariance there is no spike, then we can prove that the eigenvalue for this graph matrix will converge to this spot of this limiting distribution. And the second part, if in the spike case, if R is not 0, then as long as this derivative is positive, you will see this spike. So if Z prime for this lambda I is positive, then this lambda I, the spike in the population covariance, will generate a spike in this sample covariance matrix K. And we can quantify the location for this spike eigenvalue. Okay. Also, we can quantify the eigenvector alignment. We can choose eigenvector in this matrix K corresponding to the spike and compute the alignment with the spike in the sigma. I will not introduce these details, but you can ask the questions later for these details. And also, we can analyze the left and right singular vector. So as some remark, this z derivative positive, this is a quantity or condition which represents the phase transition. This is well known for the general sample covariance matrix or Wigner matrix, and it is first recovered by Baig, Benarous, and Pichir, which is called the BBP phase transition. And for the spike sample covariance matrix, in the linear setting, if you consider the GI, can be written as a square root of sigma times an IID entry random vector, then it has been analyzed before by Bai and Yao. And our result is like a Gaussian equivalence for this linear model. We show that our nonlinear spike covariance matrix has the same kind of asymptotic equivalence with this linear model. In the proof, we show some determinant equivalent. So for the resolvent for this graph matrix, and this one will help us to do the computation and proof. I will not introduce the details here. Okay. Now let me just jump to the applications. So applications for the neural network models. The first one is about the propagation of the signal in the data set through this multiple random neural network. So if you have some outlier signal in the data set, how does it produce the spike in the CK matrix, and how does it propagate through the neural network? That's a recap for the CK matrix. So I define this XL is just output for the L's hidden layer. Given the X0 is just input data, we consider we have n different samples, and KL is just the CK matrix at L's hidden layer. As I mentioned before, we want to consider a case that the real-world data has some low-dimension structure. So let's say we assume that this X data set have some eigenstructure with bulk plus spike. And then how does a spike produce the spike in the KL, and how does it propagate through this random neural network? So that's the main question we want to ask. Okay. Yeah, so the basic assumption is this. So we assume the proportional limit for all the dimensions, the number of neurons for each hidden layer, and the number sample size for the data set. And we fix the number of hidden layers. Here are some assumptions for the activation function, but essentially it's a quantity B sigma, which is the first Hermite coefficient for the activation function, will appear in this theorem. We assume we consider random neural network, i.e. Gaussian for all the weights. And the main part is this assumption for the data set. For the data set, we assume that you have R outlier eigenvalues. So essentially, let's say we have lambda 1 to lambda r, that you have R eigenvalue will converge to these lambda i's, but these lambda i's are not inside the spot of the limiting spectrum of the data set. Okay. And the other eigenvalues will just converge to this mu0, this limiting spectrum for the data set. We can view this from the simulation. Here, I just want to emphasize that here I didn't say these eigenvalues are in order. So it could be you have some outlier between some components. So here you have 3 components for the bulk, and I circled 3 outlier eigenvalue, which will converge to something outside the spot. Okay? Given that the data set have some spikes like here, how do they produce some spike in the K1, K2, and so on? And given the eigenvector for this spike, is there an alignment for the eigenvector for this in the data set and with the CK matrix? So that's the question we want to ask. So as a recap, so we studied the propagation for the limiting spectrum before using this Marchand-Pascal map. The first result we have is in the null model, where if you know there is no spike in the data set, suppose R is 0 in the data set, we can prove that asymptotically all the eigenvalue will converge to the spot with high probability. for each hidden layer. So this is a null model. We can extrude the spike, some non-informative spike in the random case. Okay. So now we can consider the case that R is not zero. Suppose that you have R ultra eigenvalue. How do they propagate through the random neural network? So here is a diagram for the propagation for the spike. So let's say we have lambda 1 to lambda r, which are the spike in the data set. Then we just apply this transform, this psi is some transform, and then apply this Z1 transform. The Z1 is just the Z transform I defined before, one just related to the first hidden layer. Applying these two transform, we can produce an outlier eigenvalue for the K1, the first layer CK matrix. As long as the derivative for this SI0 is positive. So if this condition is satisfied, then we will see this spike eigenvalue lambda hat I in the CK matrix as the first hidden layer. Otherwise, you will not see the spike. And then we can define this iteratively. So since you have some spike in the K1 based on this eigenvalue lambda hat I, then we can use this Z psi transform and Z transform again to produce the spike in the K2, the second layer CK matrix, as long as this condition is satisfied, the same kind. So Z2 and Z1 are just the Z transform corresponding to different layers. Iteratively, we can define this for the third layer and so on. Okay. As I mentioned, so this Z derivative positive is like a phase transition. If this derivative is negative, then the spike eigenvalue will just absorb in the bulk distribution. You will not see the spike. Okay. So that's the propagation for the eigenvalues. And similarly, we can also consider the eigenvector. For instance, if you have an eigenvector corresponding to lambda 1, then how does it align with the eigenvector of lambda hat I? So we can compute the angle, like the inner product between these two eigenvectors, and say what's the asymptotic limit for this inner product. Okay? I will not introduce here, but I will present the full theorem later. So here, this is the Z transform and the psi transform, phi transform for the eigenvector alignment. So here, as you can see, the only difference is that here it's related to this gamma L, which is the abstract ratio with respect to the sample size and the number of neurons at the L's hidden layer. We can define this set I0, which indicates the spikes in the data set. And then the psi transform is defined in this way, just related to the B sigma of this activation function. Then the IL just indicates the indices which is related to the spike in the L's layer. You can see this condition must be satisfied, otherwise you will not see the spike. So this IL is a subset of this I0. Cool. Okay, so that's the notation and the transform. Here are the theorem. So first of all, we can prove the location for the spike eigenvalues for each hidden layer. For all this I in this subset IL, then you can know this location of this location for this outer eigenvalue is just determined by this Z transform. And also we can know the eigenvector alignment. So this Vj is just eigenvector in the data set corresponding to the spike, and VILI is just the spike eigenvector at L's hidden layer, and it's computed by this transform. Okay, so that's something we can compute here, but it's a little bit abstract. So I will consider a more specific case here. So which is this Gaussian mixture model. So here you have this rank R matrix, and then plus some Gaussian perturbation. This is a example with R equals 3. You have 3 clusters for the Gaussian mixture model. Then we want to say if the data set is this Gaussian mixture model, how does it propagate through this random neural network? Can the neural network preserve some information for these spikes or this rank R perturbation? So here are the simulation. So this is the spectral distribution for the initial or the data matrix. So you see you have 3 spikes, so corresponding to these 3 clusters. And after passing through one hidden neural network, the third eigenvalue will just be absorbed in the bulk. You will only see a 2 spike in this case. And passing through another layer, there is only 1 spike eigenvalue remain in this case. Okay. And the main observation is that the number of the informative spikes is non-increasing with respect to the depth in this random case. Okay. We can also try to observe the eigenvector, so like the eigenvector line angle between these eigenvectors. So here are the case for r equals 1. If you have just 2-block Gaussian mixture model, so this B1 is the direction related to the labels of this data set. So here this black arrow is the vector corresponding to B1, and this one is the vector for the X data set, the largest eigenvector for data set. And this is the largest eigenvector for X, K1, K2, and so on. You can see this angle is increasing after passing through multiple layers. And these red arrows are predicted from our theory. Okay. So as we can see here, there is kind of curse of depth for the random neural network. Since as the depth is increasing, this neural network is forgetting some information from the data set. So here are some plots for the eigenvector alignment for the input spike eigenvector and the spike eigenvector at the else layer. So this is a random case for different number of neurons at each hidden layer. So as the depth is increasing, this alignment is just decreasing, and eventually it's just going to 0. And I plot this for different number of neurons in different cases. And the second picture is a case we have the trained neural network. So this red line is for the random case, and then I take the gradient descent to train this neural network. At t step, I plot this eigenvector alignment, and you will see that like the 50th step, this eigenvector alignment is increasing at the last hidden layer. It amplifies this eigen information. So after training the neural network, this information is preserved in this neural network, even amplified. Okay. So this actually gives us some solution to resolve this curse of depth. So there are 2 kinds of potential solution or methods to resolve this curse of depth. One is just trying to increasing the number of neurons. As you can see here, if n is increasing, if you're using the wider neural network, this information can preserve a longer time. Another solution is more realistic, is the case that you need to train the neural network. Training neural network, you can learn some feature. And in the last part of the talk, I will just consider a 2-layer neural network and showing that as the time is increasing, the number of steps is increasing, we can learn this feature, or we have a stronger alignment. So that's the last part, where we consider the gradient descent training and understand the spike eigenvector and eigenvalue for the CK matrix. So here is the setting. In this case, we just consider 2-layer neural network. So we just define this capital N is the number of neurons for the first hidden layer. We consider the classical full batch gradient descent with n training data set with mean square loss. So here, this is a gradient descent update for the t step. So this eta t plus 1 is just the learning rate for the t plus 1 step. Okay. Ideally, we just consider early phase of training, which means we fix number of iterations. Let's say we have capital T step and understand the weight matrix after T step. So that's the training set. And for the test part, we just copy the independent copy for the training data set and the training labels. Oh, by the way, here's the training label is generated from unknown target function f star. You want to learn this target function. And the test label is just generated from this this f star nonlinear function. So given this training process as a test data set, we want to consider we take t-step gradient descent for this weight matrix, use this trained weight matrix, and on this test data set, we can have a trained CK matrix or trained kernel matrix. And is there any relation between this trained CK matrix and the test data set? Any alignment or spike analysis for this kernel matrix and this test labels? So that's the model we want to understand. Okay. So it turns out this weight matrix has some very simple structure. So this gradient matrix is actually approximately rank 1 perturbation. So this weight matrix is just a rank one perturbation from the initial random matrix. So that's the crucial part for our analysis. So here I just plot the eigenvalue distribution for the weight matrix after one-step gradient descent. And you see there is an ultra eigenvalue in the spectral. In this simulation, we consider this target function is a single index model where you have a nonlinear value function, and inside you have a beta star, which is the unknown direction you want to learn. This beta star is just half one, half positive one, half negative one. So if you plot the eigenvector for this eigenvalue, you will see this pattern, which is essentially aligned with this beta star. That's how you take one-step gradient descent to learn the feature from this target function. So in our previous paper, we proved that this weight matrix after one-step gradient descent, the bulk is remained as the Marchand-Pass law, and you have a spike eigenvalue, and the corresponding eigenvector is aligned with this beta star. That's how the feature learning emerge in this simple case. Okay, using this analysis for the weight matrix, since weight matrix is like a spike plus bulk, then we can understand what's the spectral eigenvalue or ultra eigenvalue for the CK matrix after training. So here are the assumptions. It's same as our previous assumption. We consider a proportional limit. The number of neurons is proportional to the sample size. And the target function we consider here is just a single index model. We have an unknown sigma star and beta star. Using this, we can generate the training label and the test label. And here are some assumptions for the activation function, initialization, and the gradient descent. So we just consider finite step of gradient descent. So that's the setting. I just want to mention that the initialization is a little bit different from what I presented before. Here we use some mean field parameterization to make sure the output of the initial neural network is small. So based on this assumption, we can prove something for the trained CK matrix, the spike, and the corresponding eigenvector. So here are some, so eta is just accumulation for the learning rate at t step. And then using the learning rate and abstract ratios, we can define some parameters, theta 1, theta 2, and lambda 1. It turns out this trained CK matrix will have a spike eigenvalue if and only if this kind of condition is satisfied. It's like the phase transition condition we presented before. And given that, we can also quantify the location for the ultra eigenvalue and the eigenvector. So here the lambda max is just the largest eigenvalue for this trained CK matrix. And it's governed by this Z transform. So it's the same Z transform we presented before. And the corresponding eigenvector will align with the test label. So here, so we can have a precise asymptotic limit for this inner product. So the inner product between the test label and the largest eigenvector for this trained CK matrix, which is governed by this Z transform and phi transform I defined before. So this is the main theorem. I will explain this theorem from these two pictures. So this figure A is just eigenvalue histogram for this K matrix, this trained CK matrix. You can see the bulk is still the Marchand-Pass distribution we presented before, and you have a spike eigenvalue here. And this red marker is the prediction from our theory. And if you plot the entries of this eigenvector and the entries for this test label, there is an alignment pattern for these two quantities. So that's how this spike eigenvalue and eigenvector learns the test label. Okay. This figure B is for the alignment. So I just compute the alignment between this largest eigenvector and the test label at different step and different sample size. So each curve is a fixed sample size for training, and then we just consider a different step. So as the number of steps is increasing, you can see this alignment is increasing. So these dots are from the simulation, and the curves, the straight curves are from our theory. So at the beginning, there is no alignment since it's just random case. There is no alignment between this test label and the eigenvector. But for some step of training, you will see this alignment between this test label and the eigenvector. So that's how this neural network learns the feature from the training process. And also, you can see as the number of sample size for training is increasing, you have a stronger alignment. So that's the benefits for a large sample size. Okay. So as a summary, we first gave the spectral analysis for this nonlinear spike covariance matrix, and we present some Gaussian equivalence for this nonlinear model with a linear model. And as application, we first consider the random neural network with multiple layers. And if the data set has some spike structure, how do they produce some spike in each layer of the random neural network? And the second part, we consider the training case. When the trained neural network with finite step gradient descent, we can present some feature learning based on the eigenstructure of this trained CK matrix. So here are the summary from our figures. And yeah, thanks for your attention, and happy to take questions.
Are there any questions for Zhichao?
Can you just remind, so what is gamma 0 here, the thing that controls the threshold?
Sorry, which one?
Yeah, this threshold here.
The gamma 0 is the abstract ratio for the sample size with the input dimension.
With the input dimension.
Yeah, so we consider high dimension data set. The input dimension for each data set is also growing to infinity. Yeah.
So what's the interpretation? So you have a spike if and only if this theta 1 parameter exceeds a quantity that scales with the number of samples, or inversely to the number of samples?
Yeah, so here you see this theta 1 is related to the learning rate. As the learning rate is large enough, then you will see this spike emerge in the weight matrix. And then it will produce a spike in the CK matrix.
Really nice result.
Yeah, thanks.
So if I understand correctly, in the randomly initialized neural network, the outlier eigenvalues are always the largest eigenvalues because Marchenko-Pastur kind of covers the...
You mean for the random case?
So you analyze the more general case in the first, because there you could have, the bulk could have holes in the support.
Yeah.
But for a neural network, that doesn't happen, right?
Neural network, we can also consider this case so as I mentioned before, this data set could be the case that you have some data set like that.
Yes. So you have this theory, but for a neural network, you have a special case.
Oh, yeah. For the Gaussian mixture case, I just gave an example in the case Gaussian mixture, then the largest eigenvalues corresponding to the spike. But in general, you can have a data set with some certain spectral like that. Then you can have some eigenvalue, ultra eigenvalue inside some, between some.
Do you have an example of this?
For the data set?
Yeah.
No, yeah, we don't have a, so that's just a general theory. It could, I didn't have a real world data set that looks like that. Yeah, thanks.
Have you tried like different classes of dimension to see if you can get something like this? It's like very different classes of ImageNet or CFAR?
We have some simulation for CFR10, and the outlier is just in out. Yeah, in the but maybe we need to try some other real-world data set.
Classes in some of these images are so, there's not just one picture, right?
Yeah.
There's so many different things. It's kind of confounding.
Right.
Any other questions? Let's thank the speaker again.
Thank you.